Welcome to the deep dive. You sent us some really interesting excerpts from Lisa Cron's Business of Story, and we're going to dig into that today. The core idea seems to be that storytelling isn't just, a nice little extra in business. It's
Yeah,
it's fundamental.
absolutely fundamental. Yeah.
So our mission for you, the listener, in this deep dive is really to grasp how deeply story is wired into us, into our brains, and how understanding that and using it can give you a real strategic advantage. Communication, decisions, the whole lot.
hmm And Cron talks about these 7 secrets, right? Things our brains are basically waiting to hear.
Yeah, itching to hear, I think she said. We'll be exploring those in a business context.
It's a great way to put it
Yeah.
because understanding that itch it can completely change how your messages land, how they resonate.
Right, leading to better outcomes.
Yeah.
So the 7 areas we'll cover are the power of story, that's the brain's meaning maker bit.
Okay,
Then know your audience, it's all about them.
for sure.
Emotion rules connecting heart and mind. Then, inside out, the story of internal change. After that, the misbelief, where transformation starts.
The misbelief, yeah, that's key.
Then, hook 'em quick, getting that instant engagement. And we'll finish with the crucial why, finding that deeper meaning.
Sounds like a great roadmap.
So let's jump right in. Why is story so deep-seated? Why is it baked into us?
Well, it's fascinating, really, from an evolutionary standpoint. It's not just that we enjoy a good yarn. Our brains didn't just develop this randomly. Narrative processing, it was critical for survival.
Survival. How so?
Think about early humans. Sharing stories about, say, a successful hunt or dangers they found, lessons learned, that wasn't just chatting by the fire. It was passing on vital information, like, don't eat those berries, or that's where the mammoths are.
Ah, okay. So it's pattern recognition, making sense of the world.
Exactly. Extracting meaning from events, understanding cause and effect, it's how we navigate reality. It's a core function.
So less learned, more hardwired, like our operating system.
Pretty much, yeah. Yeah. And that has huge implications for how we communicate today, especially in business.
Right. So what are the big benefits of tapping into this?
Well, memory is a huge one.
Yeah.
The source points out that people are something like 22 times more likely to remember info if it's in a story versus just facts.
22 times. Wow.
Yeah, it's a massive difference. Think about it like this. Context is key, right? So instead of just saying context matters, think about a rainy day.
Okay.
If you're planning an outdoor wedding, rain is bad news. Terrible.
Definitely.
But if you're a farmer in a drought, rain is a blessing,
Yes.
salvation.
Ah, same event. Totally different meaning.
Exactly. The story around the event changes everything. That narrative context makes information stick, and it improves understanding, too.
How so? Understanding.
The stories give you that framework. They
Yep.
connect the dots between different bits of information, makes complex stuff easier to get your head around.
Like a mental scaffold.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. And naturally, that leads to more engagement. We're curious, We want to know what happens next.
We want the resolution. We want to see how it turns out.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Stories tap right into that. How's the challenge overcome? What's the outcome?
Okay, so if we ignore this, if we just present facts, what happens? What are the consequences?
Well, the biggest risk is your message just gets forgotten. Poof, gone. Facts alone are slippery.
Right. In one ear, out the other.
Exactly. And you also risk not connecting. Messages without narrative feel abstract, impersonal, irrelevant to the audience's world.
Like you said, like reading the phone book, no connection.
None. And that means you miss opportunities for action. Facts rarely inspire people to do anything. Stories, they create that emotional resonance that actually motivates change.
Okay, the emotional part, we'll come back to that. But who's doing this well now? Any examples?
Oh, definitely. Think about Nike. Just do it. It's not just about sneakers, is it?
No, it's about struggle and achievement.
Right. Their ads are often mini stories. Overcoming challenges, pushing limits, personal victory. They're selling resilience, self-improvement, not just shoes.
Yeah, those ads can be really powerful, like mini documentaries sometimes.
Exactly. Or think about Apple's product launches. They don't just list specs.
No, they tell you how it fits into your life.
Precisely. They build a narrative around the user experience, how this new thing makes your life simpler or more creative or more connected. It's always focused on the why, the emotional payoff.
And that story creates that aspirational feel they have.
It's a huge part of it.
Yeah.
One more, maybe. Charities, the effective ones.
They tell individual stories, right? Not just statistics.
Exactly. They show the impact on one person's life. That single story connects emotionally way more than saying, we helped 10,000 people.
Yeah, the specific beats the general. Makes sense. So where do businesses typically mess this up?
Oh, lots of places, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Tech companies are sometimes bad at this.
Ah.
They get so caught up in the specs, the features, the technical details.
Right.
They forget to explain the benefit to the user in a way people can actually relate to.
Right. Talking engineers speak to regular folks.
Yeah. So engagement drops even if the tech is amazing. Another common one is financial results.
Ah, the quarterly reports.
Right. Just rattling off numbers and charts. No story, no context about the challenges, the wins, the journey. Investors, stakeholders,
Yeah.
they struggle to connect.
It feels abstract, distant.
Very. And advocacy groups, too, if they just rely on dry facts, policy points, they often fail to move the needle. Compare that to groups that use powerful personal stories. Big difference.
So, okay, for someone listening, trying to put this into practice,
Yeah.
what's the main takeaway for this first secret?
Always look for the story within the information. Don't just present the data.
Yeah.
Ask, what's the journey here? Who's involved? What was the obstacle? What changed?
Find the narrative thread.
Yes. Embed your facts in that. Use relatable characters, situations people can recognize. That brings it to life.
Got it. Can you give a quick example, like before and after?
Sure. So instead of saying customer satisfaction score increased by 15%, boring, right?
Yeah, pretty dry.
Try telling the story of one customer. Maybe someone who had a specific problem, how your product or service solved it, the positive impact it had on them, their relief, their success. That makes the 15% mean something.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Much more engaging. Makes sense. All right, let's move to the second secret. Know your audience. Cron says it's all about them, not you.
Yeah, and this is just critical. It underpins everything else, really. You have to understand their subjective reality, as Cron puts it.
Subjective reality, meaning,
Their world, their perspective, their beliefs, their values, what they need, what keeps them up at night. Your story has to land in their world, not just yours. It needs to show how it helps them get what they want.
okay, so what are the upsides if you really nail this, if you understand your audience deeply?
Well, first off, your message becomes tailored. It speaks
Mhm.
directly to their specific needs, their desires, their pain points.
So it's instantly more relevant.
Exactly. If they see how it impacts their reality, they'll pay attention. They'll lean in. And ultimately, it builds a much stronger connection. Understanding their agenda, their world, that builds empathy. It builds trust.
It shows you've done your homework. You actually care about their perspective.
Right. You're not just talking at them, you're talking with them.
So what happens if you skip this step, if you don't really know who you're talking to?
Well, your message just won't resonate. It'll be irrelevant. Your stories, your pitches. They'll miss the mark because they aren't about the audience's concerns.
Which means,
Wasted resources. Time, money, effort spent on marketing or communication that's aimed wrong or just doesn't connect. And the biggest cost, missed opportunities. You failed to connect with customers, stakeholders, whoever, because you didn't understand them.
okay, so who's doing this audience understanding piece well?
Amazon's a classic example, isn't it? Their personalized recommendation.
Yeah, based on everything you've ever looked at or bought.
Exactly. They're using data to tell you a story. Based on your reality, here's something else you might need or want. It's tailored.
Almost spookily so sometimes.
Huh, yeah. Netflix is another one. Their whole content strategy is driven by understanding what different audience segments want to watch.
They invest heavily in figuring out preferences.
They do. So they can create or recommend stories they know will resonate.
Mm.
And think about political campaigns, too.
Mm-hmm. Micro-targeting.
Right. Using data to tailor messages, ads, stories to very specific voter concerns in specific areas. It's all about knowing the audience.
Okay. And where do companies stumble here? What are the common mistakes?
Launching generic products is a big one. Just putting something out there without really understanding if a specific group of people actually needs or wants it in that form leads to low adoption.
Like you said, selling snowshoes in the desert.
Exactly.
Hmm.
Or using a one-size-fits-all marketing approach.
Mm.
Assuming everyone has the same needs, same perspective, it just doesn't work in a diverse market.
You alienate people.
You do. And fundamentally, just not doing the research, not investing the time to truly understand the audience before you start creating content or campaigns, that leads to off-target, ineffective stuff.
So for the listener wanting to get better at this, what's the core advice?
Do the research.
Hmm.
Seriously. Dig deep into your target audience. What are their challenges? What are they trying to achieve? What's their perspective? Then, and this is key, frame your message from their viewpoint. Show them how you help them solve their problem or reach their goal.
Can you give a concrete example,
Yeah.
putting the audience first?
Sure. Let's say you sell, I don't know, accounting software to small businesses.
Okay.
Don't just list the features. It does this, it has that. Instead, tell a story. Maybe about another small business owner, someone just like them. Describe their struggles, maybe drowning in paperwork, stress about cash flow. Then show, vividly, how your software helped them get control, save time, feel less stressed, grow their business. Focus on their pain, their transformation.
Make it about their journey, using your product as the guide or tool.
Exactly. It's their story. You're just helping them write a better chapter.
Got it. Okay, number 3, emotion rules. Connecting heart to mind. You touched on this earlier.
Yeah, and it's so important. We like to think we're logical creatures, but Cron makes a strong case, and neuroscience backs this up, that emotion is really what drives decisions. Stories are powerful because they grab us emotionally.
So what are the benefits of making that emotional connection? Why prioritize it?
Well, first, engagement skyrockets. Emotional stories just hold our attention way better than dry facts. We're invested.
We care what happens.
Right. Second, recall is much stronger. Emotional experiences get burned into our memory more deeply. You remember how something made you feel?
Sure.
And third, maybe most importantly for business, it builds that deeper connection. Emotion fosters empathy. It builds trust. It makes the interaction feel human.
And the downside of not having that emotional resonance.
Disengagement, boredom. Your audience might understand the facts intellectually, but if they don't feel anything...
It doesn't stick. It doesn't motivate.
Exactly. The message doesn't land deeply. It doesn't lead to change.
Yeah.
And it makes persuasion really difficult. You can't easily move people to action without connecting on an emotional level.
Okay, so who's really mastering this emotional storytelling?
Google's year-end search videos are a fantastic example.
Oh yeah, those always get me.
Right. They weave together global events, personal moments, tapping into hope, empathy, resilience, connection. It's not selling a specific product, but it powerfully builds their brand image on an emotional level.
Very effective.
Who else? Hallmark, obviously. Their whole brand is built on emotional connection. Love, family, friendship. Their ads consistently tell stories that tap into those core emotions.
They know their audience's emotional triggers.
They absolutely do. And think about Dove's Real Beauty campaign. That was huge.
Yeah, that really struck a chord.
It used emotional stories to challenge beauty norms, promote self-acceptance. It created a really strong emotional bond with a lot of women. It sparked conversation.
So where does this go wrong? Where do companies fail to connect emotionally?
Financial institutions sometimes struggle. Their communication can feel very transactional, cold, unemotional. That makes it hard to build real trust, which is crucial in finance.
Right. You want to feel they care about more than just the number.
Exactly. Healthcare is another area. If communication lacks empathy, if patients don't feel heard or cared for emotionally, the whole experience suffers, even if the medical care itself is good.
That feeling of being treated like a number, not a person.
Precisely. And more broadly, just companies focusing only on features. They talk about what the product does, but not the emotional benefit. Peace of mind, joy, security, confidence. They miss that deeper connection.
So how can our listener practically inject more emotion into their business stories?
First step is to identify the core emotion you want your audience to feel. What's the emotional heart of your message? Is it excitement, trust, hope, empathy, maybe even a little constructive anxiety about a problem?
Okay, figure out the target emotion, then what?
Then craft your story to tap into that. Use relatable characters, situations people recognize, use vivid details, what did it look like, sound like, feel like. That's what draws people in emotionally.
Can you get a quick example of layering in that emotion?
Sure. Say you're selling a car. Instead of just listing safety features, airbags, anti-lock brakes, etc.
A spec sheet approach.
Right. Tell a story. Maybe about a family driving in bad weather, a near-miss situation. Describe the parent's sudden fear, then the immense relief and gratitude when the car's safety features kicked in and kept everyone safe. Focus on that feeling of security. That's the emotional benefit.
Yeah, much more powerful than just saying 5-star safety rating.
Exactly.
Okay, great. We're halfway through the 7 secrets. Next up is Inside Out, the story of internal change. What's this about?
This is where Cron says stories get really compelling. It's not just about what happens externally, the plot. It's about the internal journey, the transformation inside the protagonist because of those external events.
So the character development arc.
Essentially, yes, but specifically focusing on that internal shift, how their belief, their understanding, their perspective changes. That's what truly resonates.
Why does focusing on internal change make such a difference? What are the benefits?
Well, When we see a character struggling internally, facing fears, overcoming self-doubt, having an epiphany, it connects deeply because we all do that. It
Oh,
mirrors our own inner
it
lives.
feels authentic, relatable.
Exactly. It also leads to those aha moments for the audience. We learn something meaningful along with the character, and showing that kind of vulnerability, that process of learning, it makes a brand or whoever's telling the story feel more human, more authentic.
Okay. And the risk if you only focus on the external stuff, the plot points.
Your story can feel shallow,
Mm.
superficial. If we don't get insight into the character's inner world, their thoughts, feelings, motivations, it's hard to really empathize or care that much.
Which becomes a sequence of events.
Right. And stories without that meaningful internal shift, they just don't stick as well. They're less memorable, less impactful.
So who's doing a good job of showing this internal transformation?
Under Armour's Rule Yourself campaign did this well, I think.
How so?
The ads showed athletes pushing through incredibly tough training. But it wasn't just a physical effort. It highlighted the mental grit, the determination, the inner battle they had to win, the internal resilience.
Right. The focus was on the inner drive.
Exactly. Weight Watchers WW now is another example. They shifted their marketing, didn't they?
Yeah, less just about the numbers on the scale.
Right. They started emphasizing the internal changes more. Increased confidence, more energy, feeling better about yourself. That holistic internal transformation became central to their story.
Tapping into deeper motivations.
Precisely. And think about alumni stories from universities. The best ones aren't just about the great job the person got. They're about how the education changed their perspective, ignited a passion, helped them overcome challenges internally.
Okay. So where do companies often miss this internal angle?
Product demos often fall short here. They show what the product does, the features, but they don't connect it to the user's internal state, like the frustration they felt before, the confidence and control they feel after.
It stays purely functional.
Yeah. Company origin stories, too. Sometimes they just list milestones, founded then, launched this, acquired that. But they miss the why behind it, the internal motivations, the struggles, the lessons learned by the founders. It feels impersonal.
Lacks the human element.
It does. And also, just marketing that tries to project absolute perfection.
Yeah.
No flaws, no struggles. That can actually alienate people because it's not relatable. We connect with imperfection and growth.
So how can our listener bring this inside-out focus into their own storytelling?
When you're telling a brand story or a customer success story, consciously dig into that internal journey. What were the initial doubts or fears? What were the limiting beliefs they held? How did the experience interacting with your product, your service, your company change their perspective, their confidence, their mindset?
Focus on the before and after of their internal state.
Exactly. Highlight that evolution. That's where the real connection happens.
Can you give a specific example?
Okay, imagine you offer consulting services. Instead of just saying, we increased their efficiency by 20%, tell the story of a manager you worked with.
Okay.
Describe how they felt before, maybe overwhelmed, stressed, unsure how to improve things. Then show how working with you didn't just change processes, but it changed them. They gained new skills, felt more in control, more confident leading their team. Focus on that shift from feeling overwhelmed to feeling empowered. That's the internal story.
Got it. That makes the 20% efficiency gain much more meaningful.
Way more.
All right, secret number 5, the misbelief. The starting point of transformation. This sounds intriguing.
It really is a core concept in Cron's framework. The idea is that every good story starts with a protagonist holding some kind of misbelief. It's not necessarily a huge character flaw, maybe just an inaccurate view of themselves or the world or others.
An incomplete understanding.
Exactly. And this misbelief is what they need to confront and overcome. It creates the central conflict and sets the stage for their growth.
Why is identifying this misbelief so important for the story?
Well, first, it creates the need for change. It
Yeah.
clearly shows what the protagonist or maybe your customer has to learn or realize. Second, it drives the plot. The whole story becomes about challenging or shedding that misbelief.
It provides the narrative engine.
Right. And third, and this is really powerful, audiences often recognize themselves in these misbeliefs. We all hold flawed assumptions. So seeing a character grapple with one makes the story incredibly relatable and impactful.
Okay. And if there's no clear misbelief at the start, what happens to the story?
It can feel pointless,
Yeah.
aimless. If the protagonist starts out perfect or already knows everything, where's the journey? There's no room for growth, no reason for them to change.
So the character feels static.
Yeah. And the resolution, the ending, feels unearned. If they didn't overcome a fundamental misunderstanding or flaw, the transformation doesn't feel significant.
Makes sense. How are companies using this idea of addressing misbeliefs?
Financial literacy programs often do this. They target common misbeliefs people have about money, like investing is only for the rich or debt is always bad. Their stories and information directly challenge those assumptions.
Ah, okay. Trying to correct a flawed starting point.
Exactly. Sustainability campaigns often tackle the misbelief that my individual actions don't make a difference. They tell stories to show the collective impact of small changes.
Countering that sense of powerlessness.
Right. And diversity and inclusion training. A lot of that is about uncovering and challenging unconscious biases, which are essentially misbeliefs about certain groups of people.
So, identifying and correcting flawed assumptions is key. Where do businesses often fail to address these misbeliefs?
Marketing often assumes the audience already understands and accepts the problem your product solves. But maybe the audience holds a misbelief about the problem itself or about the feasibility of solutions if you don't address that first.
Your message won't land. They're not ready to hear the solution yet.
Exactly. Change management inside companies is another big one. If you roll out changes without addressing the existing misbeliefs or fears employees have about it, you'll likely hit a wall of resistance.
You haven't addressed their starting point.
Right. And sales pitches too. If you just launch into your solution without first uncovering the customer's assumptions, their potential misbeliefs about their own needs or your industry, you're probably not going to be very persuasive.
Okay, so for our listener, how do they apply this? How do they find and use the misbelief?
Think about your target audience. What are the common, maybe unstated assumptions or misbeliefs they hold related to the problem you solve, or your industry, or even your company? What might be stopping them from seeing the value you offer?
Identify their potential mental roadblocks.
Yes. Then, frame your message, your story, to gently challenge that misbelief. Offer a new perspective, backed up by evidence or narrative, that shows them a different, more beneficial way of seeing things.
Can you give an example of challenging a misbelief in a business context?
Sure. Let's say the common misbelief is that eco-friendly cleaning products are expensive and don't work as well.
Okay, a common perception.
Your story could feature a skeptical customer who held that exact belief. Show their journey of trying your product, maybe reluctantly at first, and being surprised by how affordable it was and how well it actually worked. Show them realizing their initial assumption was wrong.
So you use the story to directly counter the misbelief with a relatable experience.
Exactly. You lead them from their misbelief to a new understanding, using the story as the bridge.
Powerful. Okay, number 6. Hook 'em quick. Creating instant engagement.
Yeah, in our world of constant distraction, you have milliseconds, basically, to grab someone's attention. Cron emphasizes using urgency, novelty, surprise, something to jolt the audience awake right at the start.
Deliver a truth or a question immediately.
Right. Don't bury the lead.
So what's the benefit of a really strong hook?
It captures attention instantly, makes them stop scrolling, stop multitasking, and lean in. It sets the stage, quickly establishes the stakes, hints at the conflict or the value.
Gets them curious.
Exactly. And by breaking expectations, by being surprising or intriguing, it cuts through the noise and reduces the chance they'll tune out.
And the consequence of a weak opening, a slow start.
You lose them. Simple as that. If it's boring, predictable, or doesn't immediately signal relevance, their attention wanders. You miss that critical window to engage them.
And once they're gone?
It's really hard to get them back. You've lost that initial momentum.
So where do we see really effective hooks being used?
Short-form video ads, TikTok, Reels, they have to hook you in seconds. They use surprising visuals, quick cuts, provocative questions, strong opening statements.
They've mastered the art of the immediate grab.
They have to. Think about great presentations, too. The best speakers don't start with, "Good morning, my name is." They start with a startling statistic, a compelling anecdote, a challenging question, something that makes you sit up and listen.
Grabs you immediately.
Right. And headlines, email, subject lines, crucial hooks in the digital world, they need to pique curiosity enough to earn that click.
Okay. And where do hooks typically fail? What are the common pitfalls?
Presentations that start with 5 minutes of introductions and agenda overview.
Right.
Deadly. The audience is already checking their phones.
Guilty as charged, probably, sometimes.
We all are.
Right.
Marketing copy that uses bland, generic language. We offer innovative solutions. Doesn't grab anyone. Fails to stand out.
Needs more punch.
Definitely. And sales pitches that take too long to get to the point to establish the value proposition. The prospect tunes out before they even understand why they should care.
So for the listener, how do they craft better hooks? What's the advice?
Start with something unexpected,
Right.
intriguing, directly relevant to a core pain point or desire of your audience. Ask a provocative question. Share a surprising fact. Tell a very short, compelling story snippet that highlights the problem. Just don't start slow. Avoid the obvious, the jargon, the boring preamble.
Jump right into the interesting bit.
Essentially, yes.
Can you give an example of transforming a weak opening into a strong hook?
Okay. Week opening for a results presentation. Good morning. Today I'll review our Q3 results.
Snooze.
Right. Stronger hook. Last quarter, we faced a challenge that honestly could have derailed our entire year. But one team's unconventional idea didn't just save us. It actually set us up for our best Q4 ever. Let me tell you what happened.
Ooh, okay. Much better. Creates instant intrigue. What was the challenge? What was the idea?
Exactly. You're hooked.
Definitely. All right, final secret. The crucial why. Unveiling deeper meaning.
This brings it all together, really. Cron argues that the stories that stick, the ones that truly resonate, are those that answer the why. Why does this matter? What's the underlying significance? We're meaning-making creatures. We crave understanding the purpose behind things.
Going beyond the what and how to the why.
Precisely.
So what are the benefits of clearly communicating that why?
It provides essential context. It clarifies why something is important, why a change is needed, why a decision was made. That leads to deeper understanding.
And probably more buy-in.
Absolutely. When people understand the reasons, the purpose, they're much more likely to support it, to engage with it, to commit to it. And focusing on the why gives the message lasting impact. It connects to deeper values, bigger goals. It sticks.
And if you don't explain the why, what are the risks?
Confusion, skepticism, resistance. If people don't understand the rationale, they might be suspicious or just tune out. They're less likely to be motivated if they don't grasp the purpose.
Why should I care? Why should I do this?
Exactly. Engagement stays shallow if there's no connection to a deeper meaning or purpose.
Okay. Who does a great job of consistently communicating their why?
Patagonia is a classic example. Their marketing isn't just about jackets. It's constantly reinforcing why they exist to protect the planet. Their environmental mission is their why, and it infuses everything.
It's core to their identity and how they communicate.
Totally. TED Talks are built around the why. Speakers aren't just presenting data. They're sharing the passion, the purpose, the why behind their idea or discovery.
That's what makes them compelling.
It is. And even just good company vision and mission statements, they should clearly articulate the organization's fundamental purpose, its why.
Okay. And where do businesses often neglect the why?
Launching big initiatives or changes without clearly explaining the rationale to employees, that often leads to resistance and confusion.
People feel like things are just happening to them.
Exactly. Marketing that only talks features, not the underlying benefit or value the why it matters to the customer's life, fails to connect deeply.
We talked about that with emotion, too.
They're closely linked. And leaders who just issue directives, do this, without explaining the reasoning, the why behind the order, that breeds disengagement fast.
So for our listener, how do they make sure they're always addressing the why?
Simple advice, but crucial. Always explain why. Don't just state what you're doing or how. Take the time to connect it to the bigger picture. What's the purpose? What core value does it support? What meaningful outcome are you aiming for? Help your audience see the significance.
Make the purpose explicit.
Yes,
What?
don't assume they know or that it's obvious.
Can you give one final example of emphasizing the why?
Sure. If you're presenting a new strategy to your team, don't just list the new goals and tactics.
Yeah, what and how.
Right. First, explain why the change is necessary. Talk about the market shifts, the competitive pressures, the challenges you're facing. Explain the underlying principles driving the new direction. Help them understand why this strategy is crucial for future success, how it connects to the company's mission.
So they understand the context and the necessity.
Exactly. That builds understanding, alignment, and commitment. Much more powerful.
Definitely. That feels like a really strong way to lead.
It absolutely is.
Okay, well, that brings us to the end of our 7 secrets, our deep dive into Lisa Cron's insights on story in business. I mean, the big takeaway seems crystal clear, doesn't it? Storytelling isn't just, some fluffy marketing tactic.
Not at all. It's fundamental. It's how we're wired to communicate, to understand, to connect, to make decisions.
Right. It's not just a way to communicate. It is the way we communicate most effectively as humans. Full stop.
Couldn't agree more. Ignoring these principles means you're essentially trying to communicate with one hand tied behind your back.
Yeah. So we always like to leave our listeners with a final thought, something to chew on.
Okay?
Building on all this, maybe think about your next communication challenge. Could be a presentation, an email, a meeting. How
Mm.
can you identify the underlying misbelief your audience might be holding? And how can you use that understanding, along with the crucial why, to craft a message that doesn't just inform, but actually transforms their perspective?
Ooh, that's a good one. Focusing on that misbelief is the key to transformation. Really powerful food for thought.
Hopefully useful. Thanks for joining us on the Deep Dive. Welcome to the Deep Dive. You sent us some really interesting excerpts from Lisa Cron's Business of Story, and we're going to dig into that today. The core idea seems to be that storytelling isn't just, a nice little extra in business.
Yeah,
It's fundamental.
absolutely fundamental. Yeah.
So, our mission for you, the listener, in this deep dive is really to grasp how deeply story is wired into us, into our brains, and how understanding that and using it can give you a real strategic advantage. Communication, decisions, the whole lot.
hmm And Cron talks about these 7 secrets, right? Things our brains are basically waiting to hear.
Yeah, itching to hear, I think she said. We'll be exploring those in a business context.
It's a great way to put it,
Yeah.
because understanding that itch well, it can completely change how your messages land, how they resonate.
Right, leading to better outcomes.
Yeah.
So the 7 areas we'll cover are the power of story, that's the brain's meaning maker bit.
Okay,
Then know your audience, it's all about them.
for sure.
Emotion rules connecting heart and mind. Then, inside out, the story of internal change. After that, the misbelief, where transformation starts.
The misbelief, yeah, that's key.
Then, hook and quick, getting that instant engagement. And we'll finish with the crucial why, finding that deeper meaning.
Sounds like a great roadmap.
So let's jump right in. Why is story so deep-seated? Why is it baked into us?
Well, it's fascinating, really, from an evolutionary standpoint. It's not just that we enjoy a good yarn. Our brains didn't just develop this randomly. Narrative processing, it was critical for survival.
Survival. How so?
Think about early humans.